Hi, welcome along to Lydden Hill Circuit here in Kent. The sun's shining for our very first time at the Autoglim Classic Festival. It's also the first time that Racing Rally UK has worked with the Classic Touring Car Racing Club, and we've got the very best seats in the house to bring you all the classic action here today. Well, we're ready now for our first race, the Classic Saloon and Historic Touring Car Championship race. These are cars that are marketed pre-1966, and we've got a Lotus Cortina on pole position. As you can see, Brian Stevens in car number 25. Brian, race winner in this Lotus, beautiful equipment. Tell us about how you approach the racing here at Lydden Circuit.
Well, not race winner yet. It's my first ever pole with the car, so I've not actually won with this car before, but I normally race a Jaguar, and that's where I've had my considerable wins with. But how you approach this circuit, well, that's why I've got the Lotus today and not the Jaguar, because it's a small circuit and it suits the car. But it's pretty fraught. Barely get out of second gear, but it suits the car, so we'll see what happens in the race.
Set to be a very close encounter then between the three Lotus Cortinas from the head of the field. Brian Stevens in pole position alongside Roger Stanford and Les Nash, but Jim Burrows could be the fly in the ointment in his Mini Cooper. Nick Jones and Richard Sprigg start on row 3, both with their Anglias. Two one-off cars for this race on row 6. That's the Jim Utting Alfa Romeo GTV alongside the Toyota Corona of Andy Johnson, both of those cars in Class G. And then further back, watch out for Richard Strutt in his Morris Minor alongside Andy Messam, who is the championship coordinator in his Mini 7.
So 24 cars lining up on the grid for what will be a 15-minute race around Lydden Hill. A little bit of creeping there from the front, but the race gets underway, and it's a good start there from Brian Stevens, the pole position man in his Ford Lotus Cortina, and indeed the three Cortinas pulling away from the 4th place Austin Mini Cooper of Jim Burrows there as they headed into Chessons for the first time. But it's Brian Stevens, who usually races a big Jaguar, that leads the way then from Roger Stanford in 2nd place, who has already won this season the Alton Park and Silverstone rounds of the series. It's Les Nash there in 3rd place. In 4th place, it does look to be the Mini of Jim Burrows as they head up the hill towards North Bend for the first time. A great sight all of these cars make, lots of different manufacturers represented. We've got Saabs down the grid, the Morris Minor, the Triumph 2000 of Stuart Radford as well, and bringing up the rear is the Wolseley 1500 of Anthony Warnes, the man all the way from Sheffield. But coming through at the end of lap 1, it's Brian Stevens that leads in 2nd place. Oh, and someone going a little bit sideways there. That was the 6th place man, Richard Sprigg, in the number 77 car. The driver from Bidford-on-Avon in the Ford Anglia 105E managed to recover that and hold on to the place.
Also worth a mention is the cracking start that Joe Allenby Byrne got from the line. He started on row 4 but has very quickly slotted himself into 5th position and is challenging now Jim Burrows in his little Mini Cooper. So Joe Allenby Byrne in that sky blue Cortina GT, number 51, all over the back of the little Mini there, and getting a good run out of the corner up Hairy Hill. So almost actually having that move done before they get to North Bend. They're going to run 2 abreast there, but Jim Burrows offers very little resistance to Allenby Byrne, and through he goes in the sky blue Cortina. Next man through could possibly be Richard Sprigg in the white and green Anglia. So Jim Burrows under some stern pressure here from some slightly bigger machinery. The top 3 Cortinas though starting to break away from the rest of the pack.
As the field heads into Chessons once more then, it's now 4 Cortinas up front. We've got the Cortina GT then of Joe Allenby Byrne having made his way ahead of the Jim Burrows Mini, and chasing down now the Ford Lotus Cortinas that comprise the top 3, Brian Stevens, Roger Stanford and Les Nash. There you can see towards the back of shot the blue Anglia of Nick Jones, who's lost a few places since the start. He started in 5th position, but I'm sure will be keen to reclaim some places. He's got the number 4 Cortina of Tom Lally DeVille in sight. Tom Lally DeVille, who holds the Class F lap record for Lotus Cortinas here at Lydden Hill. I'm sure, in fact, that's probably been beaten already actually by Brian Stevens, who's had a great pace in qualifying, a 51.1 for him. compared to the lap record of 52.3. Here's a battle down the order. This is in Class G, which is effectively the invitation class. It's between the Toyota Corona of Andy Johnson and the little Alfa Romeo GTV being driven by Jim Utting. They're heading over the line to start another lap.
Yeah, the Corona with the headlights ablaze. Not quite sure why that is, because there's not too much traffic ahead of Andy Johnson, but these cars have stayed with each other from the grid. They started on row 6. Only one other Class G car in this race, that's Tim Dodwell's Mini Cooper S, so we'll keep an eye out for the number 83 car. But this is a scrap between the two Anglias that started on row 3. Nick Jones in the blue and yellow car, number 8, up against Richard Sprigg in number 77. And there's also, of course, the white Cortina, all sideways there for Sprigg, heading down Hairy Hill and back towards Paddock Bend. That's the Thomas Lely DeVille Cortina, I think, just ahead of them, the white car. But already some lappery going on here with one of the Wolseys getting, in fact the only Wolsey in the race, the 1550 getting lapped there further down the order. So back with race leader, again dealing with some traffic. A Morris Minor to negotiate for Brian Stevens, but he can do that pretty safely. The yellow car we're just getting a glimpse of there is the Triumph 2000 of Stuart Radford from Class B. But Brian Stevens really playing this traffic to the best of his ability, because he's starting to build a cushion, isn't he, on second place man Roger Stanford. So Stanford and Nash will be involved in their own little private battle here if they're not careful, because Brian Stevens is disappearing up the road.
Yeah, and he's just lapped the number 43 Saab 850 of Chris Parks in Class E, which is the smallest of the capacity classes, racing alongside the Minis and the Austin A35s, for example. Talking of which, here's one of those cars now. The A35 there, just climbing the hill towards us, and it is the number 74 car, in fact, of Jeremy Knight, the driver from not too far away, actually, in Hove. Just making his way back down the hill, and he's up against the Austin A40 there, and that's the one that belongs to Luke Wilson, I think. There's some another car in there as well is Paul Young with the white A40 with the green and yellow stripes down it. Also 68 there is the Keith Wright Morris Minor, the red coloured car. The slippery surface flags you can see being displayed by the marshal, so some oil maybe has been dropped by one of these cars, and it will make conditions treacherous as these cars go around Cheshunt's Drift once more.
There is Paul Young in the white A40, as you mentioned, Ian, scrapping away still with the little A35 of Jeremy Knight. And here is the fast-starting Joe Allenby-Byrne, now coming under pressure from Thomas Lely DeVille, who has kind of followed him through the field. Both of these cars started on row 4, so obviously didn't have quite as good a qualifying session as they are having in the race now. But the extra horsepower and the handling ability of these Cortinas showing in this 15-minute race. They've made quite a bit of ground up, heading down Hairy Hill then towards the right-hander at Paddock Bend, and the classic Lotus Cortina stance being taken through the corner, which is more or less at 45 degrees, heading through that 90-degree right-hander. Lots of opposite lock being used, which is what all this crowd has come to see. Some classic cars being driven in the classic manner.
So off Cheshunt's Drift they come towards Devil's Elbow, then the left-hander that marks the halfway point of the lap. There is the 51 car of Joe Allenby-Byrne, just about to put a lap there on Paul Young, who made a return to racing at Mallory Park on Boxing Day, and plenty of traffic there for these leading contenders to negotiate. Allenby-Byrne based down Shureham-on-Sea, not too far away, down here on the south coast again, just making his way down the hill ahead of Tom Lely DeVille. Great sight all of these cars make as they come back towards us. There's the Wolseley again being lapped by Keith Wright on this occasion, making his way around the right-hander at Paddock Hill Bend. We are in the third meeting of the season for these classic saloons and historic touring cars. Both of the outright wins so far this season have been taken by Roger Stanford, but there we can see Tom Lely DeVille, who was the 2008 winner, coming into the pits. In fact, that's number 76, Stephen Sprigg, in his Lotus Cortina Mark 1. He looks to be out of the race, but here's the battle for second place.
Yeah, and I was wondering whether there had been a change of second place, and indeed there has, because Les Nash in the purple-coloured Cortina is now in front of Roger Stanford. We did catch a glimpse as Nash goes very wide there, coming out of the left-hander and up the hill, compromises his exit speed. Oh, there's a bit of contact there. Oh, and a lot more rubbing through North Bend. Almost Les Nash pushing Roger Stanford onto the grass there as one of his light fittings comes loose. That was all because Nash did not get a good exit through the left-hander and up the hill. Compromised his exit speed towards North Bend, and Roger Stanford tried to take advantage, but Les Nash was having none of it. He's all over the road here, coming through Paddock Bend. Some robust racing for the two Cortinas, still second and third, but if they're going to carry on driving like that, no chance of catching race leader Brian Stevens. Here's the Anglers having a good fight once again into North Bend.
Yeah, oh, and a little bit of contact there was between the 77 car and the 8 car. 77, of course, is Richard Sprigg, and 8 is Nick Jones, who had that poor start but is now going through on the inside of Paddock Hill Bend. It's Paddock Bend, I should say, very close indeed. Sprigg gets sideways yet again. He's been the most spectacular driver in the field, but he's just about managing to cling on to that place as they go over the line once more, down towards Pilgrims, and then the long right-hander at Chessington, sideways again, and somehow he manages to cling on to the place. You would think that Nick Jones would be trying to stab his car up the inside to take the place away, but so far he's not been able to make that work. I don't think he's quite been close enough actually to do so. Oh, and a spinner there. Oh, and it's the man in second place as well. It's Roger Stanford in car number 11, and that allows Les Nash, after that mistake a lap or so ago, to go back through into P2. So Les Nash, who's been racing for so long, he's in his 70s now, is back through, and more rubbing here. That's the 8 car side by side with Sprigg that time, and he couldn't get through, and Sprigg holds on to the position.
My word, I've seen a number of classic banger races at Hensford Hills in the Midlands, but this is almost as destructive. Here's this second place battle once again. Les Nash and Roger Stanford still scrapping away. Stanford trying to rescue this race once again after that spin at North Bend. But here's the race leader, Brian Stevens, and a retirement it looks like for Nick Jones as well in the blue and yellow Anglia. Second place scrap still rages on. Les Nash is going to run wide again. Is he coming out of that corner? He doesn't like that left-hander approach to Hairy Hill there, coming through Devil's Elbow. Just can't seem to get that right, and once again Roger Stanford is on the outside bend. This is the last lap incidentally, so it looks like Brian Stevens will take the race win, but it's all about second place at the moment because Stanford now has the inside line. But breaking a little bit later is Les Nash towards Paddock Bend, and the purple Cortina will just about stay in front, but some brutal racing there from the two of them. Great to watch. Brian Stevens takes the race win, Les Nash by a nose in second, and Roger Stanford in third.
Well, let's put some flesh on all of that then. Brian Stevens then getting the win, just under 5 seconds clear of Les Nash, who in turn was only 6 tenths ahead of Roger Stanford. Tom Ladysville made it an all Ford Lotus Cortina top 4. Jim Burrows breaking that dominance in his Mini. He was 5th position. Looking further down the order at the rest of the finishers, Luke Wilson finished just outside the top 10 in his Austin A40, doing battle with the Jeremy Knight and Paul Young Austins as well. Anthony Warnes was 4 laps down in his Wolseley 1500, and among the non-finishers, Nick Jones and Joe Allenby Byrne.
Well, congratulations, first of all, Roger Stanford, third place. Tell us about that race.
Well, it was a good race. We let Brian go. He was leading. So then I was with Les, who I've raced for many, many years, and I was sort of second and he was third, and then I let him have it, and then we collided a couple of times, and then somebody dropped some oil, so that made it even more entertaining, and it was me and Les everywhere, and I just couldn't get rid of him, and then I got in front and I spun. So that didn't help, and then Les spun out somewhere, and I got second back, and then I got third, and that was about it. I finished third, and he finished second. It was great to race with him. He's a good racer, and Brian is too. But Brian got away. Brian had the easiest race of the day.
These are awesome cars to watch. You must love driving them.
Oh, it's like an old slipper. I've been driving it for years, like Les. Brian's fairly new to these small cars, and he's done really well today because he's never beaten me before. But I'm going to have him later today.
That's the spirit. That's exactly what you want. Thanks very much, Roger, very much indeed. So, second position in the race, a very hard-fought race. Les Nash, congratulations, and tell us what you can remember about that.
Well, all I can say, it was a very hard race, but what made the race worse, especially, I think probably that I'm getting a bit older now and I'm a bit more weary. There was a lot of oil thrown, and if you hit that oil, the car was sideways. Roger went sideways a few times, and I knew once I got in front of Roger towards the end, I knew how I could beat him. And the way to beat him was he couldn't get me on the inside, because coming up the hill for the hairpin, I kept the inside position, so his only route was on the outside. When he went on the outside, I leaned on him just a fraction, and that's where the oil was. So he hit the oil every time, so there was no way he was going to get by me.
Well, Brian Stevens, normally it's a kiss of death if I interview somebody before a race. They don't do very well. I didn't tell you that, but well done, cracking race.
Yeah, well, thanks for that. I'm very well. Obviously, I'm well pleased. It's my first pole and my first win with that car. It went very well, and well, you know, I got the break, and it was. I won't say it was. It certainly wasn't boring, because I was trying very, very hard in the opening laps, and I saw Les and Roger behind me having a bit of a squabble, so I thought, well, that'll do. And but then the oil came out, as Les said, and it became very, very slippery, and I know my lap times must have dropped quite considerably, but hopefully were other people's as well. So, but just managed to keep it in one piece, keep it straight, and yeah, well pleased to have a win in the car today.
Okay, Craig Rayner, I believe this is all your idea here. You're P2, which is good, but your game, I understand.
Yeah, we came up with an idea last year. You know, there were a lot of guys that were not sure what they were doing, where they were going. There is obviously a big saloon car scene, and Fords are very much a part of it. We've done an awful lot in the Ford Saloon Car Championship, and thought we'd have a go at something else.
So what can you actually race in this championship? Well, it's actually a series, isn't it, rather than a championship? What can you bring to the grid?
You can bring any Ford that was made production model, body shell.